From the moment the sun crested the horizon and cast its first golden rays over our quiet suburban neighborhood, an air of tension had been building, one that none of us could have predicted would escalate to a confrontation so intense, life-altering, and surreal, as that morning began like any other, with our son preparing for a routine jog through the wooded trail behind our property, unaware that the overzealous HOA cop, a man who fancied himself both judge and enforcer, had been patrolling the area with a mindset that compliance and submission were the only acceptable responses to his self-assumed authority, and as our son, disciplined and fit, jogged past the boundary of the HOA's self-designated patrol zone, the man, perceiving what he considered a breach of rules, confronted him aggressively, issuing orders that were both overbearing and legally questionable, escalating the situation with a firearm drawn and his finger hovering near the trigger, demanding immediate compliance in a tone that was both threatening and arrogant, and in that instant, the reality of the situation collided with the identity of our son, a highly trained Special Forces operative, whose skills, situational awareness, and calm under pressure had been honed over years of grueling training, countless operations, and high-stakes missions where split-second decisions determined life and death outcomes. And though he remained composed, his mind immediately assessed every variable: the weapon, the distance, the positioning, the environment, the potential risks to himself, the HOA enforcer, and bystanders, as well as the best approach to de-escalate without unnecessary force, all while maintaining control of a situation that could have easily spiraled into tragedy. And with measured steps, controlled breathing, and subtle non-threatening gestures, he began to communicate, clarifying intentions, identifying himself, and asserting his presence with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to life-or-death encounters, while simultaneously gauging the psychological state of the man in front of him, recognizing fear, ego, and the compulsion for control as key motivators driving the aggressive behavior, and leveraging his own presence and aura to create a dynamic where rational thought could potentially replace panic, all while preparing mentally and physically to respond instantly should the situation devolve into violence. As seconds stretched like minutes, neighbors who had begun to notice the confrontation watched from a safe distance, some capturing video, some calling authorities, and all uncertain of the outcome of what had quickly become a scene that could be described as part domestic confrontation, part law enforcement standoff, and part extraordinary circumstance where experience, training, and calm decisiveness would be tested in real time against ignorance, arrogance, and misplaced authority. And as dialogue slowly replaced immediate threats, our son methodically disarmed the tension, presenting credentials, calmly requesting that the individual lower the weapon, explaining the legal realities and consequences of brandishing a firearm at another person without probable cause, and making it clear, without the slightest hint of aggression, that his skills and readiness were absolute, and any escalation would be met with precise and overwhelming response proportional to the threat, all while maintaining a posture that discouraged panic and promoted rational decision-making. And in this extraordinary moment, the HOA cop, confronted with the reality that the person before him was not only trained beyond his comprehension but fully capable of responding with lethal precision, slowly lowered his weapon, confusion, fear, and embarrassment replacing the bravado he had previously displayed. And by the time local law enforcement arrived, called by neighbors witnessing the standoff, the situation had been diffused without a single shot fired, yet leaving all involved, from our son to the HOA official, to the bystanders, with an acute understanding of how easily authority can be misused, how deadly assumptions can be when power is misunderstood, and how true preparedness, discipline, and calm assertiveness can turn potentially fatal situations into lessons of respect, awareness, and caution. And in the quiet that followed, as the adrenaline subsided and the weight of what had transpired settled in, the community collectively grasped that that appearances are deceiving, titles do not guarantee capability, and that courage, training, and presence of mind can prevail even in the most absurdly dangerous encounters. And our son, returning to his normal routines with remarkable composure, carried with him the affirmation that his skills, integrity, and readiness had prevented tragedy, transformed a potentially catastrophic confrontation into a story of discipline, restraint, and an unforgettable lesson in the intersection of authority, responsibility, and human potential, leaving an indelible mark on all who witnessed the extraordinary events of that day, and serving as a cautionary tale for anyone tempted to wield power without knowledge, respect, or humility. As the dust of the morning's confrontation settled and the reality of the extraordinary incident began to permeate through our tight-knit neighborhood, word of the encounter spread like wildfire, carried on whispers, phone calls, and increasingly, the relentless stream of social media updates, with videos capturing snippets of the standoff circulating widely, generating intense debate, speculation, and analysis among viewers who were astonished not only by the audacity of the HOA cop but by the calm, measured, and almost cinematic way our son had handled a situation that could have ended in disaster. And as the story evolved, it became clear that this was not merely an isolated incident of overreach by a self-important individual, but a microcosm of larger societal issues regarding authority, preparedness, personal responsibility, and the unpredictable intersection of human ego and discipline, with commentators dissecting each frame, each gesture, each word exchanged between the two men, noting the subtle ways in which experience, training, and situational awareness can transform potentially deadly encounters into lessons of composure, strategy, and ethical conduct, and the narrative quickly expanded to include interviews with neighbors who had watched in or as a real-life display of courage, intelligence, and precision unfolded before their eyes, their accounts detailing how the tension in the air was almost palpable, how fear, respect, and disbelief intermingled as they observed a single individual calmly take command of a chaotic scenario, disarming not just the immediate threat but the collective anxiety that had gripped the onlookers. And as local news outlets picked up the story, reporters emphasized the rarity and uniqueness of the confrontation, framing it as a dramatic yet instructive case study in the application of training, foresight, and ethical decision-making under pressure, highlighting how our son's unflappable demeanor, clarity of thought, and capacity for rapid, strategic response prevented potential tragedy, while simultaneously educating both the public and local authorities on the importance of understanding the consequences of their actions, the legal boundaries of personal authority, and the unpredictable variables that arise when individuals overstep their perceived power. And amid the growing attention, the HOA community itself faced intense scrutiny, with debates emerging about the qualifications, conduct, and accountability of those appointed to enforce rules, and whether the misuse of perceived authority could be effectively curtailed without proper oversight, training, and respect for law, while legal experts weighed in on the incident, analyzing the nuances of property rights, the limitations of HOA jurisdiction, the legal ramifications of brandishing a weapon against another individual, and the extraordinary circumstances in which a highly trained operative, fully aware of both the tactical and legal dimensions of the confrontation, had exercised restraint, judgment, and strategic patience, managing the scenario to achieve a safe and peaceful resolution without resorting to violence. And in the days that followed, as residents reflected on the event, conversations shifted from fear to admiration, from shock to appreciation for the rare display of courage and expertise, and from indignation at the initial overreach to an understanding of the necessity for preparedness, composure, and ethical decision-making in the face of potential danger, while our son, remarkably grounded and modest, navigated the aftermath with discretion, emphasizing the importance of de-escalation, communication, and maintaining safety above ego or retaliation, reinforcing the idea that true strength lies not in confrontation, aggression, or the assertion of dominance, but in the mastery of self, the understanding of others, and the ability to act decisively, responsibly, and humanely under extraordinary pressure. And through this extraordinary sequence of events, the neighborhood, our family, and even the broader public were given a profound, living lesson in courage, intelligence, accountability, and the delicate balance between power, responsibility, and human understanding, leaving an enduring impact on everyone who witnessed, participated in, or learned of the remarkable episode, and reminding all that in the face of threat, preparation, clarity, and ethical resolve are the ultimate tools for preserving life, dignity, and justice in even the most unexpected and high-stakes confrontations.